Pokémon Legends Z to A's release is right around the corner, and it's more of a revolution than most people realize. It continues the Pokémon Legends series tradition of taking the classic Pokémon formula and totally switching it up, this time with real-time combat. Pokémon is obviously a legendary beloved series, and it has been for a very long time. But while small iterative changes have taken place, the games still generally feel like a modern version of what we got with Pokémon Red and Blue in 1996. But with the Legends series, it feels different. We're seeing changes that they would never first try in a mainline Pokémon game. And with Pokémon Legends Z to A, it almost feels like Pokémon's Breath of the Wild moment. Removing turn-based combat is a big change, but it's the exact revolution that this series needs. When Pokémon Sword and Shield came out, they had a mixed reception. Critics generally seemed to like it, and they really appreciated the Wild area in particular, as it did provide some innovation on the traditional Pokémon formula. But outside of the Wild area, it was the exact same linear turn-based Pokémon experience. And critics and the general audience alike had plenty of problems with the objectively bad graphics and removal of the National Pokédex, which for many completely nullified the fantasy of being able to catch them all. You could only catch some of them. And then Pokémon Scarlet and Violet came out to pretty rough reviews. It didn't run well at all, the graphics were empty and ugly, and the open world didn't feel like it had a lot to do. But did you hear that? It had an open world. And despite its emptiness, people really appreciated it, because they were trying something new. There's nothing wrong with Pokemon's long-standing turn-based formula. There's so many absolutely fantastic turn-based games, even recently. Baldur's Gate 3, Clair Obscur Section 33, Persona 5, Undertale, Deltarune, etc. And there's so many great turn-based Pokemon games. My personal favorites are Pokemon Black and White, but everyone has their favorites. I think a lot of the series' initial success can actually be attributed to the simple turn-based formula that's easy to pick up but with a surprisingly high skill ceiling. But these days, when you buy Pokemon games, you know exactly what to expect. It's the PB&J of the gaming world. Sometimes it totally hits the spot, but it's nothing you've never had before. But in February of 2021, a little game called Pokémon Legends Arceus was announced. While you could make the argument that the Wild area in Sword and Shield was the series' first foray into an open-world format, I wouldn't go that far. The rest of the game was super linear, and it only contained one self-contained, albeit large, area. But Pokémon Legends Arceus was different. Its entire gameplay was built around the open-world format. The way you get Pokémon was just sneaking up on them and finding them in the wild. There's Game Freak's experimental test balloon for a more freeform version of Pokémon, and it worked. In the first week of release, it sold over 6.5 million units, which actually put it at a faster pace than Sword and Shield. While it slowed down and fell behind its mainline counterparts, it settled on a very respectable 14.83 million units, which is still a huge success. But something I think is even more important, people actually really liked this one. It wasn't a case of the critics liking it and the fans not, and it definitely wasn't a case of both groups disliking it. The critics really enjoyed it, and so did we. It was even nominated for Best RPG at the 2022 Game Awards. Just think about that. A Pokemon game, no, a Pokemon spin-off, was not only mentioned in the same breath as Elden Ring, but was literally competing against it. It wasn't just a good kids game, but one of the best RPGs of the year. And the thing is, Game Freak doesn't even consider this game to be a spin-off. For the purposes of this video, I will continue to refer to it as such due to the unique nature of the game that's so distinct from most Pokemon entries, and to be honest, it does feel like a Pokemon spin-off, but Game Freak doesn't think so. To them, it's not a side thing, it's an active evolution of the series' DNA. Game Freak tried something new and it paid off. People loved the open world format and Game Freak took notice. People liked it with the Wild area and Sword and Shield, and they liked it here with Legends Arceus. But above all, they saw that people liked it when they experiment, when they try something new and switch up the formula beyond traditional linear gym battle progression. So Game Freak saw the spin-off game as an opportunity. What if they created a whole series dedicated to experimenting? A series all about moving beyond a traditional Pokemon experience while still being modern, full-budget RPGs. This was an opportunity to finally satiate the fans and give them something new. So quickly, they got to work on a follow-up to Arceus, Pokémon Legends Z to A. Pokémon Legends Arceus was all about making you really feel like a Pokémon trainer. You got to go out into the wilds, track down Pokémon yourself, and the whole goal was to collect them all. That's always been the series' motto, but this was the first time it really felt like the point. But let's be honest, there's one thing in Arceus that still just didn't feel all that realistic. If you were really in the world of Pokemon and trying to catch a wild Pokemon, you wouldn't take turns attacking each other. It's one clear game mechanic in a game that otherwise almost feels like a simulation. So that's what the Legends series is trying out next. What if Pokemon abandoned its turn-based roots and became an action RPG? This is obviously a massive leap for the franchise. Pokemon has had real-time combat in the past, but it's never been in a traditional Pokemon experience. Both Pokken Tournament and Pokemon Unite have had real-time combat, but those are fighting and MOBA games respectively. We simply haven't had a major Pokemon RPG in real time, and it could be genius. There are plenty of people who, for one reason or another, just can't vibe with turn-based combat. Maybe it's that they feel like it slows down the game too much, or that it's just not the sort of strategizing they're looking for when they want to play video games. So when it comes to Pokemon, a franchise that, while competitive scene does exist, is made to be accessible for just about everyone, a lot of people just aren't excited about the turn-based battles, so they want to see if people are just in need of a change of pace. Skeptics may argue that it just won't feel like Pokemon. The series has never been about real-time combat, and it might just not have the charm that the traditional mainline Pokemon experience has. But honestly, I disagree. I think the core experience of adventuring and bonding with your Pokemon will be exactly the same, even with this new gameplay. If you specifically play Pokemon for the turn-based combat, then sure, it might be a letdown, but I'm willing to bet that the vast majority of you play Pokemon for the experience of catching Pokemon, building a team, and exploring the world. And if you liked how it worked in Legends Arceus, which a lot of you did, you'll certainly like it here. You also might think that, come on, it's Game Freak, they're going to appeal to the lowest common denominator and dumb it down. But there are so many examples of AAA studios totally switching up the gameplay of their franchises and making them even deeper than they were before. Breath of the Wild, God of War 2018, Pokémon Legends Arceus just a few years ago. We won't truly know if it's a dumbed down version of what could be until it comes out, but there's no reason to expect it'll be any simpler than what we already have in the mainline titles. Because at the end of the day, there's so much potential here. A true dynamic, real-time Pokemon combat system could create a much more interesting skill progression and ceiling, much deeper strategy, again for the casual player, and a more immersive connection to your Pokemon and the world around you. We're finally getting gameplay that actually catches up to the fantasy of being a Pokemon trainer. This video isn't just about hyping up one game. While I want creative ideas to succeed, I have no stock in Pokemon Legends Z to A selling 1 million copies or 20 million. But like Pokemon Legends Arceus, this game could be the series' opportunity to set up future generations for success. When Pokemon Scarlet and Violet came out, people didn't like it, but the one thing they did like? The open world that was popularized by Pokemon Legends Arceus. So if the real-time combat is a hit, Game Freak may just incorporate it into their next mainline entry. Let's just hope, the rest of the game is good too this time. And it's also important to talk about if it fails, because the stakes here are higher than it may seem. We've talked about what happens in a world where this game is a hit, but if people don't like the real-time combat, we're almost guaranteed to get another 10 years of the same safe formula we're all used to. But at a time when a lot of Pokemon is looking pretty bad, this should give us hope. It's the biggest franchise on Earth, and for so long they have been totally fine doing the exact same thing they always do. But for once, they're not content with that same formula. Game Freak is looking forward. And for those of us who have really been wanting something new, that should be exciting. But I want to turn the discussion over to you. Are you excited for Pokemon Legends Z to A? Is this the revolution that you've been looking for? I can't wait to hear what you have to say. And if you've made it this far in the video, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe. It only takes a second and it makes a huge difference. Also, thank you so much for 500 subscribers. But anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in a couple weeks.